Manu that way, and today we're going from Turingi, and we're going to do a circuit up here and off the road. And the first trip we're going to is down this road, McDonnell Road. The full name of it used to be McDonnell Redoubt Road, and we'll end up here at that position, and it just shows on the map site of McDonnell Redoubt. And so this is where we're visiting. So it's straight to the end of the road, and it's shown and marked just to the right, the right side of the road there. There's, and from there we're going back along here and past the site where McDonnell's men stormed a par and found there was no one occupying it. And from here we're going down past and through here, we're going down here, down the road here, and then walk to the Redoubt sites. There were two Redoubts, site at Porere, that the soldiers from McDonnell's Redoubt finally attacked and stormed. From there we'll come back down the road a couple of kilometres and over here, and it's down here, and we'll go to the old village site of 1840 with Deffenbach Corcordon, and we'll talk to the Mutuapuhi Highland and the sites where the great famed Te Raha composed the famed haka, the All Black haka. And after that we'll just over the hill and back homeward. So that would be a few key points, different points in time. 1869 for the fighting and the action Redoubt, 1840 for the settlement here, and much earlier settlement at and Par and defensive Par that was set up as grand as the great one at down at the great Waitanui Par at the Paramount Chiefs held down here. So it's going to be a good drive and a good day, hopefully, for the weather. We have to, this time of year, be very aware of the weather and the weather moods and changes regardless of forecast. Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai tauti mai ki taupu moana record keepers. It is approximately the 9th of October 2022. We are here at Rotowaira. On the background there, that's Lake Rotowaira, and we're going to be looking around there, having a look at McDonald's Redoubt, which I have read all about, and now we're going to see where it is and how it is. You're in the company of Perry Fletcher, Jeffrey Addison, Whaitaima TeWhare, and David Gray.
I think this road continued at one time right to the site of the McDonnell Redoubt, but where it's shown on maps, we now don't have any signage for anything. But one time this was most popular place with tourists to come. So this connects up with the attack on the other side with the Porere Redoubt of our Te Kuti stand, and so the soldiers were gathered here and camped here until they got enough people and reinforcements and that for Te Arawa and Maori from the Taranaki, Whanganui areas before they launched the assault on Te Kuti. So we hope to be able to get down the end of the road and see what is or remains or can even be accessed. Well, I haven't got my precise map. We'll do the summary when we get back. Without the map, maybe yes or no. This area here, I wasn't sure it was that paddock straight there where the Redoubt I do recall finding one or two old features round here, and there were many sites all around the lake between here and the hills, many Maori sites that initially weren't recorded under Tongarero's scheme. But the giving you the background here, we've come at the eastern side of Lake Rotorua, and this is where Colonel McDonnell set up his redoubt and the garrisons here, and Te Kooti from June, and then a bit of skirmish at Tauranga Taupo. It was about 4 months that Te Kooti, as New Zealand's most wanted, spent when he wasn't recruiting people for his cause, which had him go way up the Western Bays and further north in contact to the Waikato area, was happily bathing at the pools in Takanu, New Zealand's most wanted. So what was the urgency suddenly for the soldiers to take enough people to start attacking Te Kooti? McDowell was camped here to keep the natives away from the area.
Whereabouts was the redoubt, this way or that way?
Well, the redoubt was by the channel, and might even be that paddock there. We'll have a look, but it's near the Potu channel. So at the far end here. But one time this was signposted and well visited, well used, and even the old buses would come here. And like everything else, New Zealand Heritage Site, they've acknowledged that Te Porere, but this had, and you were expecting, Jeffrey, a construction here? The construction?
Yes, from reading a book called A Museum Underfoot by Trevor Hoskins. I believe he had something to do with the restoration of this place back in the 60s, back to its original condition, and this is what I have expected to find, but you've told me that it's all since been modified again to the point where it's gone.
Well, you're seeing nothing more than what you see in my own backyard. This reconstruction and I've set to send to Whaitaima a view of what looked like a John Wayne Wild West movie fortress. And this reconstruction, that even on recent maps it's got McDonnell Redoubt, and still well advertised in maps. The reality is, in our journeys in following, say, the footsteps of Te Kooti, signs, places, towns, everything else, it's just been, all the maps, the information has just been deleted. We just can't see anything. At one time, even at the road there'd be a prominent sign, McDonnell's Redoubt, from the main road and highway. I'll get you a little bit. I just time to print out. Visit Tongariro, but maybe here. I'll let you read the first part of it.
Military foundations, law and justice, or greed and cold. With the presence of Te Kooti in the region, did the authorities marshal their forces to pursue him before he could rally further support, or create further mayhem? Not a bit of it. He was left in the interior to freely move and rally support for his divine cause among the Tu Wharetoa and the Waikato Māori, at the same time burning villages and recruiting or ridding people in areas that the Tu Wharetoa had long coveted. But such was of little concern as long as the white population was unaffected. Months passed, then came rumours of a reef of gold being discovered in the Kaimanawa Ranges, the only obstacle being Te Koti's presence in the area. Ormond wrote to Colonel MacDonald, informing him of the situation and of the profitable advantage to them both, if he would but remove Te Koti from the district. "I will see that it goes well for you and your brother." Without waiting for reinforcements, MacDonald took a great risk rushing to what was an abandoned position. Is that where we are now?
And this is where he gathered, marshalled the troops, the garrison. The redoubt was here. And the map. But before we come out from the northern side of the southern side of Lake Whaitaima, that's why in the morning they made a early attack on the pa to overrun Te Koti. Up the parapets, bayonets fixed, everything else, and found that there was no one in the pa. After months of preparation, military strategy and everything else.
There's been a severe anticlimax.
And
yourself up for a fucking come on out, we'll fucking get this.
And so be very, very English. Everything was settled with brewing a cup of tea, putting on a billy cup of tea. And it was from there, as they were drinking their tea, one of the soldiers spotted a wisp of smoke in the distance, and that was Te Porere. "Oh, we come to the wrong place. He must be several miles further over." So the military had during those months desertions, rebellion, complete upset, and everything else, and completely Opepi threw everyone out. The mindset of the military out, because the experts said, Colonel Whitmore said that Te Koti would be confined way over the other side of the hills, the ranges and the coast, and he happily came to Opepi, and as I say, and had several months bathing down to Kanu and that, when he wasn't recruiting people. One of the things I get, because I look at the reports, beyond reports, past reports, and one of the things here was that I will end up here, because this is relevant. Would you, Jeffrey, just read this last paragraph? That's that very last one, and as to the
As for the gold, after the battle at Te Porere, a party of diggers arrived, then Ormond and Poihipi. Oh, was Poihipi a gold digger? The diggers were kept well fed while the soldiers starved. Unable to find gold, the constabulary, the Taupo Redoubt, later set out on their own forays, panning the sands at Whangamata Bay and moving inland from the western bays. 1912 was the last time there was gold fervour, when a not too honest gentleman salted selected places north of Wellington at Taihape and lastly on the lake edge near Taupo. Was this at Mine Bay?
That's at Mine Bay where we covered with one of our boat trip.
Mr. Martin then issued gold shares for the same. Today the stone foundations of a gold miner's hut as well as 2 mine shafts may still be seen. That's at Mine Bay.
That's at Mine, and that's where you get the name Mine Bay. Gold mining that never existed. It's always been gold, fraud and greed, and that's why I title the whole thing had nothing to do with bringing Te Koti to justice.
It was a front for gold prospecting. Resources. Reasons. So can we have a little scout around in there and see if there are remains of the redoubt here, and if not, back into that other perspective thing?
Yes, I've taken black and white photos when all this was levelled off.
Yes.
Ask you...
Because I can see a rise over there that looks like it's...
Yes. We'll have a wander here. We'll have even round the corner have a wander. and we're still plenty of time. The tranquil waters behind us, so we'll do that now. We'll do that now. But this very popular tourist promoted place no longer exists. Why then was it ever levelled out? That's where I'm heading to. See, you've got the sands from the Ruapehu Ashfall fall still around here.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing. Well, taking you here, Jeffrey, with this back beside, it was an all Maori settlement. That was before McDonald's Redout. So that could be anywhere. Oh. No, so there's nothing else where we've been, and we was. The Poetry Channel. I wonder how you'll be able to see any features now. See that? That's cultural. Look at it. Lovely, eh? Yes, that's cultural. And I'm looking at that in relationship to the stone here.
So you can tell it's been cut.
Yeah, but there's no like abrasion like the diamond lines that usually cut it.
No, this is more of a
This looks like it's just been
Smoothed.
yeah with something else. Eh?
I'm looking in more of a cultural context, because we're going over from here.
Beginnings of an adze or something.
Well, we're going here over to here, but there's nothing here with these bumps and movements around here. A big stone, but he's been pushed to one side. Angry bee's nest.
It does, eh?
Of a Wild West fort. Physical, the whole thing was built as a solid reconstruction.
Oh, so like, was it rotting and things, and that's the reason? Was it dangerous?
Well, things were collapsing and needing constant attention repair. Ministry Works, who under Hosking's direction had spent arm and leg to get it all done, just said enough's enough. And so the Historic Places Trust, faced with that, said, well, let it go. And do we know that it's actually the site? Because Hosking had built over everything and levelled all the traces of where it was. So they threw that in as a question and a doubt. And so here we got redoubts preserved up and down the country, but this one was completely bulldozed and levelled and erased.
It seems almost vindictive thing to do, you know? Why not just let it sit like everything else in the future? Why?
Well, well, to Porere, they have that's been left, but it's been built and continuously in a state of repair, and it has to be an annual state of repair to keep the integrity of the earthworks and that ongoing thing. So this should have been left completely alone, but with that type of restoration in mind, not to build a whole structure and that on top of it.
So that's create them.
Yes, if you're going to recreate or build something to add to the tourist things, put it next to it, not level and put it on it. When I came here, the day that Trevor Hosking came irate and pulling his hair out and foaming at the mouth, and that's my embellishment of it, but he was short of being very, very angry. He went into Warwick Keys. He wanted to know who was the Historic Police Trust, who's the representative. Strangely enough, everyone said up to that point Trevor Hosking was the representative of Historic Police Trust, but he physically said who's the representative, and he was going and storming how this had all been bulldozed, and he wanted to take someone to account. And that's when Mike Key produced the press release from the Historic Police Trust and gave all the reasons why it had to be bulldozed and levelled off.
So
And,
you're saying it's not even worth us having a look?
oh yes, we're here. The all Maori settlements were just to one side. I don't know which side it was. I found maybe on the other side where those pines are, there was a little ditched area off, but that was an urupā there, and the ditch there was placed to keep the pigs out. Have a gum tree in the distance. That might be marking all the area. This Jeffrey's devising new dance steps. I think we're do what Jeffrey suggests. Try to get my rail down.
So do we go back along the trail, or do we carve our way through here?
With this.
No, it's too hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the part of this, it was something to bash the dust. Although we probably go right on top of it, it remains in the doubt. We thought that now, I would say.
It's obviously, as I say, see my photo, everything's back on the level, just like a cleared big paddock. The only thing I found was a military lead bullet, Schneider bullet. Yes. We'll go. Do you want to go back? Do you reckon we can take more direct bearing to the road?
Yes, from the road.
From the road going.
Yes.
Yep. Sounds good.
And if we can't get further than that in the line of those couple of gums, just guesstimate. If I could find more black and white photo,
We have more ideas.
I thought it was 200-300 metres in from where we're only about 200 metres from the gate.
Yeah, I'd say we backtrack and get it.
Cool. The whole lot is level, it's just earth.
But you've just allowed it to be reclaimed by Blackberry, basically.
And it's taken away the offending sign, although it's a public sign.
Yeah.
That
I think
the Historic Police Trust is like that. Something they don't agree with, remove sign, evidence, walk away. If you haven't destroyed it, just leave it to overgrow.
yeah, that's what must have happened. It's
But all the money that's been put on the Porere site,
yes.
the balance of history is to emphasise public access here with the story, because the two stories are connected.
Mm. And now it's not.
So did you follow the line of those trees, Jeffrey?
Oh no, I went in.
It's
Yeah,
all-
you can see there's a bit of blue there from the possum thing tag, so I moved into there, but I couldn't even get to that first pine tree without giving up due to this density of the blackberry.
And we believe where the old channel went, that's been bypassed, that's the areas the other side of those trees, possibly up to 100 metres in a levelled area, or an
Yes,
area that is now levelled.
We'll need to take in a sickle or something to clear that blackberry, to clear a path through.
And all you'll be doing is finding nothing anyway,
Yes.
as you'll see if I
Well,
find
then
my black and white photo.
we've succeeded, haven't we?
We've succeeded.
Because we've
Haven't
found
we?
nothing.
We've found nothing.
Yeah, but again, it's another classic case of history
Key sites of history.
being
We don't have to have the agitators and the protesters to demand signs get removed. It's all being done for them.
yes.
No, this is a baby. This one was never fought from or fired shot from. But Tom McDonnell's forces in the Aotearoa came. This was completely left for them to go to the main one. So they put all their put everything in the main one. They didn't want a few of them to be, or any of them to be cut off here when they had a main defence up top. You see someone slightly higher, the other, and they could run in and out. In little offside places, so they'd have their guns and everything, you know, to fight open.
So are we going to the main one?
We're going.
The bigger one?
That's the main goal.
So is the big one in the same sort of state of preservation as this, or is it?
The only reason it's been preserved, this is still artificially made up. This is every few years it's returfed to keep the integrity.
Yes.
But that's nicely kept the integrity, not levelling off and putting Wild West forts and that on top.
Yeah.
And the integrity of the earthworks and the ditches out the old Redoubt could have been maintained in a similar way, but no. Hard to climb, but worth the effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all downhill now.
Okay. So is he going to take an overhead picture?
Well, he'll do his flying and that. It's just
There's a robin.
that's lovely, old bush robin. The mass grave is in there,
Yeah.
but they run ahead, so they don't know. But I'll read something out regarding what was, and you see it's a much bigger when you look right across.
So it looks like it was one for people to stand in rather than kneel in.
Much more purposely done. I was just explaining to Whaitaima that you wouldn't do an elaborate thing and be caught out halfway construction. Some of the largest pa nearby had a much smaller pa for interim defence and protection.
Yeah.
And that's the one we're seeing down there. Quickly put up, they constructed a bigger one in case they were surrounded.
So they found my fallback position.
And many big pa site always had in the vicinity a much smaller one, just while they quickly could go back, sleep at night, defend themselves while they're building it.
Yeah, I got you. So if they rebuilt that bit over there, they was all meshed.
All this is meshed, rebuilt, added to almost annually with turf and that.
Yeah.
But the McDonnell Redoubt could have had much the same thing for it. Instead, once you start levelling and building something on top, you lost the integrity of the original
And the authenticity.
and the authenticity. Over there's some stones, and that's where the mass grave is,
Just in there.
just in there,
Of
of the ones that were killed here.
the constabulary.
No, not constabulary, the Tikuri's men, Tikuri's followers were all here. The constabulary had massive hundreds of Arawa and Taranaki Maori to do the fighting, to do the charging, to do the fighting. It was Tikuri's men that, based on the Redoubt, on the principles of the gunfighting, he did his two models here. McDonnell's Redoubt was quite different at the far end of Lake Redoubts. And that's why about halfway between here and the McDonnell Redoubt, they attacked the pa they thought he was in. And they found abandoned. It was smoke from here that they realised where his people were.
So this is where the smoke.
So this is where they saw smoke in the distance.
So you know, So with the ho, was it the ho-ho? Were they?
They were initially, Te Kuti being more intelligent as the natural leader, he refined and modified it in his imprisonment in the Chatham Islands, and he refined a religion, and religion that came out with Te Kuti was the Ringatu.
Oh yeah.
That replaced the fanaticism of the ho-ho. That's the upraised hand as a ho-ho. What Te Kuti did is, as a natural leader, he was able to get many followers to his cause.
Yep.
Okay, we're near the mass burial at the Redoubt here. There were some 30 people buried in the mass grave here when the Te Kuti and his followers. It was here that Te Kuti lost 2 fingers as he was escaping, but what they had the presence of mind by the thick stand of bush behind them was when they got the angle of shooting wrong, which meant most of the attacking force were out of sight, that the soldiers had to, the Te Kuti's men had to stand, expose themselves to fire by coming up there. So when they overran this place, Te Kuti and most of the men ran out the back. They left the back door open, straight into the bush. And they left mostly the women to do the fighting and defending. And so fair few casualties are women here that are buried. And but with that, I'd just say, fortunately due to some blundering on Te Kuti's part, defenders were exposed to gunfire. This time they stormed Porere Redoubt to finally put him and his men to rout. This was the last battle that took place from a fortified position in New Zealand. Te Kuti and his men fled out the back door into the bush, while their women were left to undertake rearguard fighting. A woman being somewhat annoyed seeing her husband killed, sprang upon him, one of the pursuers, from behind a tree as he confronted another ho-ho. The tales and versions of Te Porere got better with the telling. Te Kuti himself lost a finger as he fled years after evading capture to 1885, when he was guaranteed and granted a government pardon and then to settle at Ohiwa Bay of Plenty. Now, among the prisoners taken at Te Porere during this October 1969 was an old woman who had been wounded in the foot. Having no tribe, she was put up for auction and brought for a horse valued at £10. Delighted with his purchase, Pohika said, "She'll never be able to run away with that wounded foot, and I wanted just such a one to cook my potatoes for me." While a horse could carry potatoes, it has no ability to cook them, where a woman could carry the potatoes and cook them as well. These are many of the stories that spun off from here. I've got a photo of Pohika, and I've got photos of others, but that one man in the rearguard fighting as he was running through, a woman jumped from the bush, leapt on him, and tore out an eye, tore out one of his eyes, and so disfigured him. I've got a photo of him with his face. He so disfigured him, he suddenly realised that no other woman would ever look at him, so he forced her to marry him. I don't know how the tense the marriage was. I mean, lost shy and been forced to marry, but these are the untold stories. They don't put people as people at these places in the aftermath. And that Te Kuti, after 2 years, they gave up chasing him, and as I say, end up with a pardon and everything else. But But the one of the things is we've got key people, and when the Maori people from the Redoubt here were telling the stories, oh, is that light better? For photos?
Way better.
Way better. But
More
unlike,
contrast, eh?
but unlike the people, the locals, put all the history to them. They made out these things, gave other names, ancestral places centuries before, and they're strictly designed for the time of the guns and the gunfire. But one of the key people here that was killed was a man called Rory, and he came from, I've got his full name, but he was the last great tūhanga, and he was revered at the Waikato Maori, but he came in Ngāti Tahu area, and Ngāti Tahu realised, and this is how the modern Maori mind is so changed and altered with the teachings, the stories, the re-stories, this is tapu, that's tapu. But tapu in the old Maori way was such a thing that the missionaries, when they converted, couldn't remove the old time tapu. Why do people think, oh, this is tapu, give a prayer, it's all gone away? No way in the old days. And Rory was one that ate the atua. He gobbled up everything, and he was taken from place to place. He refused Christianity, he rejected the Christian God and everything, and he was the ideal person to have to remove the old time tapu. No one, once they converted to Christian, had any power and mana, regardless of the books, the Bible, the missionaries, the ordinations and everything else. This is another thing that's lost. So in the districts he went through, that it permanently removed tapu. A place, oh, that's tapu to this day. And when he came up here, he was a great tūhanga that was killed and buried here. But he is from Ngāti Tahu. But when the people were coming from the marae, you never heard anyone outside. You made out it was only them, only their people, anyone doing the work in defence. Yet Te Kūti's followers came from tribes all over the place. And that's where the Chatham Island prisoners and that. They represented tribes everywhere.
Where did Te Kūti come from? What was his place of origin?
It wasn't at Hawke's Bay when he was taken. And he was kicked on the ship to join the prisoners and to go to Chatham Islands.
Yes, but what was Te Kūti's whakapapa background?
Te Kūti's lot, I think, is the whakapapa I've got. I've got Te Kūti's old whakapapa. Came from, was tied in with our Tūhoi peoples.
Okay.
And that's why the Ringatu Church got such a good hold, even to this day, with his following and his teachings. But that's another study, because someone about 1960 was doing extensive study about the life and history of Te Kūti, and came to me, and I gave him a book about the Ringatu that I said we want to read and use that. Don't look at the Pākehā mind and everything else. He was the direct descendant from Captain Ross, who after the land wars went around village to village confiscating all weapons, and he kept all the carved ones for himself. And but that's another story. But I had that link with researchers and on Te Kūti right back in about 1960 there, because I had some key things in interest even then. So that's that was a book, Te Kūti, that was printed, I think it was 1960, it was published. That's why I was having interest in all these areas and places at that time too. Yes, but each one, and even the fighting McDonnell and that up to before he set his redoubt, their accounts, their stories, there's tales of who did this and who fought that. And all this is gone from history. And even these places, as I say, last fighting ever from a defensive place in New Zealand. But some of this is still captured in the annals and the archives, but the main features, characters and people are still lost to history.
So you know, he said, is Rory buried here?
Yes.
That's him in there.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe they put all the bodies were put into a common grave.
Is that like R-O-R-E?
R-O-R-E.
Yeah. Is there any other Rories around Tūwharetoa? Was there?
No, this particular tōhanga, I've got his, I think I've got his full name, and I thought I'd put him in here.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to.
Because I've seen that name before. Just trying to remember.
Yeah. Oh, they're key things, even to dealing with the. In our next stop, round the corner, I'll bring up the hapu here that were written off and overrun during the 1890s in land courts. That were. Yeah.
Okay.